All right, so good morning, everybody. We were supposed to be meeting in class, but we were told at the very late date that we shouldn't come in. So, kind of not cool planning on the Hunter side. They should have announced this certainly earlier today. I was already in my office when it happened. For those of you before the announcement who contacted me about not being able to show up, thank you. I definitely appreciate that. Double props to those of you who did it on Zulip, and also for those of you who did it in the public forums on Zulip, because then your classmates know that, like, well, first of all, if like you can't make it in, then it's saying to them, hey, I'm going to need some help from you afterwards. But also, if somebody's in a situation where maybe they don't know if they should come in or not because they don't know how hazardous it is. This gives them more information. For my part, I live in Manhattan. I live on 27th Street, and so I just hopped a city bike. But anyway, so we're going to do via video what we were supposed to do today, which was just going to be a quick run through or a walkthrough. Again, a little bit more about how we're doing things in our class. So some of you I know have done a fair amount using Git before and GitHub, and for many of you, though, this is totally brand new. But it's important, a couple of things are important. It's important to really be specific and follow instructions directly and exactly, and reading every little thing that you're told, and using all your resources. So in terms of those resources, I'm just going to come here and I'm going to clear this window. We're going to get to the window in a second. You've got a lot of them. So for example, somebody posted a question about the CD command, and a couple of things about that. If we actually look at the lab page, if you start reading through the lab, it actually has information on CD. And more information on CD. So it's all there. And then it gives you this, this link here and this link. I'm going to make these bigger, and this link, this link here and this link here. So if you read the lab, even if before you can start working on it, just on the website, it's a resource to learn those tools. In addition to me, of course, modeling it in class. But in addition to that, if you scroll down on our page here, it has our instructions and all that stuff, but you'll see here, learn the command line, Linux command, hello webbooks, learn the command line. So these are resources that are available to you, and you should use them. And so like the first thing you should do, is you should never just immediately say, what's wrong? How does this work? Look at your resources. And then when you post the question, you post, what does this do or how does this work? Here's where I looked. So now you're providing context, and people want to help. People don't want to help people if they're like, well, why can't you Google that? But if they know that you already did Google it and you still couldn't come up with the answer, then people are like, hey, this person made an effort. I want to help them. So do your homework first, do that legwork first, and use your resources. And then post the question. And relating to that, also give as much information as possible. So somebody also posted a question dealing with Git, and they were and posted screenshots. That's really helpful. So screenshots, exactly. This is here's what I did, here's what I typed, here's what it gave me. That's really, really helpful as well. And it turned out. In this particular shot, it said in the error message that Git gave, it said, try git pull. So again, read those error messages and read them word for word. I know it gets hard when you see like this word salad and you're like, oh man, I don't understand any of this. But if you really read, there's going to be a couple of things in there that you'll be able to glean solutions from. And then even if you don't get solutions, they'll lead you to a well-formed question, and then we can get solutions. All right, and the last resource I want to mention here, and this is for Git and GitHub, is I gave you this link to the teacher pre-work. These are my teacher programs. This is, I put this on Zulip under that first assignment, and if you notice here, we're giving you information here, like here, how to set up Git and GitHub. including for Windows, here's a video. How to set up SSH keys, which I showed you in class, but here's a video for it that we made. And then the basics of GitHub. So, like here's a link, here's a video, like I'll just open these up because I don't remember exactly what they are. And then there's essential commands. Back to these. Yeah, so here, this is a video that, that I made with an introduction to Git and GitHub. Let's skip the ad. I don't remember playing this here. I'm wearing my red balloon security shirt, but basically this will give you that walkthrough of using Git and GitHub. And this one is not a video of mine, it's a video someone else made of Git and GitHub. So again, these are a lot of resources for you to use to get you up to speed. All right, so please make sure to use them. So the other thing, and this relates to the question that was asked on Zulip, what happens when I get a merge conflict? And you should read this, and it tells you what else to do, and also here what when all else fails, and also here it gives you this workflow, which we're going to talk about in a second. All right, so use these resources. Okay. So now I want to go through walk through a little bit about how I expect you to do the lab. So I'm going to go here, and I've already accepted the assignment, which most of you have already done. So that's just basically clicking on the link. Like here, if I bring up Zulip and I go back to 135, and our topic would be Lab 01, and at the very top, notice I have that link to the teacher stuff that has all that GitHub help, but also here is the link to the assignment. So you just click on this, accept the assignment, and then ultimately you get to here. So now the first time I want to do this, and most if not all of you have already done this, you want to clone this. So I notice here that this is clicked on SSH, not on these other ones. I copy this, and I'm going to paste this here, but if I look at this directory, notice that, notice whatever, I've got a bunch of files, but I do a git clone, and notice, I guess I didn't copy this over, so let me copy this over, paste, and paste on my terminal is Control-Shift-V, and then I hit enter. And I can give it another name by just adding a new name over here, but like I could be like Lab 01, and this would put it into a folder called Lab 01, but I'm not going to do that. So now I've got my lab. So now I'm going to cd into that directory. Now notice what it says here. I'm going to come back here, come back to these notes. This is from that teacher page. It says do once, git clone, and then do periodically are what you'll do every time. So basically in here, in this directory, I'll do an ls, I'll do a git status, let's say. Everything is up to date, everything is good. And what I'm going to do is whenever I start, and I didn't show this last week, I was going to show this today. Whenever you sit down to work, the first thing you're going to do is git pull. And what git pull does is it pulls everything down from GitHub. So let's say you made some changes in the Hunter Lab computers and you pushed those. Well, if you did that and and then you push those and then you go to your machine at home, you won't have them there. You have to pull them. So every time you sit down to use Git, you go into the folder and then do a git pull. And so now I've got my file. And so the first thing I will do is I want to edit the README file. Now you can use whatever editor you want, but I use Emacs. And so I'm going to go into find the file, and I'll load it. And there's nothing really to change here. I'll just say I edited this. So I'll save it. Back in here, notice that I have the README file. If I look at what's in it, notice I edited this. If I do a git status, which I do a lot, it says I've modified this. So whenever you modify a file, you have to do git commit, the name of the file, and then -m and give it a message. So I modified the README. Now, git status says I'm on ramp, it says I'm ahead of the origin, so do git push to publish it. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into this folder. Notice that notes doesn't have anything. If I reload it, this note section has nothing. But if I do a git push, and I reload this, I edited this, it's here. So basically, you want to do a commit and a push whenever you make changes and you want to get them up to GitHub, make them permanent. So now I can start working on the lab. And so I'm going to work on the lab. I'll click on the actual lab instructions. It says how to compile. This using namespace standard, you're never supposed to use that. That is a bad practice. It shouldn't be there. It pisses me off. We'll talk about that in class next Thursday, or on Zulip if it comes up. So you can read all of this. How to submit your programs. You don't do that. We don't use grade scope. So find the smaller of two integers. So write a program called smaller.cpp. So I'm going to go into smaller.cpp, and this is just some shortcuts I have because I have Emacs set up for this. And notice I don't do using namespace standard. I don't do this. I don't like that. Instead, I'm just going to do standard out hello world. So now I'm going to save my program. If I come back to my terminal, notice I now have smaller.cpp. Smaller.cpp, it's there. If I do a git status, notice it says that this file is untracked. It doesn't know about this yet. That's fine. I'm going to test this. G++ -o smaller.cpp. That creates smaller the executable, and I can run it using /smaller, and it runs. So now I want to get this up to GitHub. So since it's not tracked, I can't just do git commit because it's not under GitHub. So I've got to do an add. Git add smaller, and I only want to add the CPP file. And I'm hitting tab for completions, like once I've partially typed. So now notice this smaller isn't tracked. I don't care about that. I don't want to send that up. But that's fine. But this has been added, but I want to commit it. Now, if I want to undo what I just did, it tells me how to undo this. But I don't. I want to commit this. So I'm going to type git commit the file I want to commit. Git status. And then to send it up, I do a git push. Now, notice that here, if I reload this page, notice that I have README, but I still don't have smaller. But if I do this git push, now if I reload the page, it's now here, and it has the contents in it. So that's all good. So let's say I want to work with this some more. So, and of course, you'll write your actual routines. More stuff. And I'll just do this way. So I've saved it. Git status. Again, notice that these untracked files, this is an automatic backup. And I've modified this. And so if I want to commit this, I just do the commit again. So your workflow is normally going to be when you very first accept the assignment, you have to clone it, go into the folder. Then, whenever you add a new file, you do a git add. But you normally don't do a git add. You do a git pull when you want to get stuff from GitHub if you may be out of date. But then it's normally modify your file, then commit. Modify your file, then commit. But let's suppose I forget the -m. If I just do this, it throws me into this editor and it asks me, how do I, what's my message? So like here I say modified smaller with stuff is a bad message. And I just type Control-C to put in the message. But for you, it'll be a little menu-y thing. And so now I can do the git push. But the lesson for that is always do the -m. And so we do the git push. Now if we look at smaller.cpp, it has that extra line. Now another thing you can do is you can look at your Git log, and it shows you, oh, I modified, like it tells you everything you did. Now, Git lets you do a ton of other things, including basically you can undo changes, you can look at old versions of things. Like actually, I can do this here. If I do Git time machine, I don't know, the keystrokes aren't working right for this. All right, I'm not going to worry about it. But there's a way of looking back. Well, actually, I can look at it this way. I can look at my recent commits, and so if I want to see what I changed for adding smaller, you'll notice that, and you don't have to know this here, but I'm just showing this to you, I added all these files. But on the other hand, that last one, it said, oh, I only added this line. And let me actually make another change. Let me get rid of disable time machine mode. Let me just, sorry. Let's say I get rid of this line. I do a git commit $.cpp remove hello, git push. And now, and again, I'm just using a fancy Git interface. You'll notice here, the minus, I deleted that line. So this gives you tools. Now, you don't have to know these yet, but if you really learn this tool, it will let you, look at exactly what your changes are at any point in time. So there are also a couple other commands that can be very useful. You'll, I don't know if I have them here. Yeah, here. If I want to get rid of a file, I can use git rm. If I want to rename a file, so if I want to get rid of smaller, I can do git rm smaller.cpp, and then I could do the git commit and then the git push, and it would get rid of it. Or if I wanted to rename it, I could do git mv, smaller to some new name. So I could rename it, and then again, I still have to commit, and then I still have to push. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything for the basics of this workflow. And so then you would just finish up smaller, leap year, et cetera, and, et cetera for the rest of these. All right, so that's the basics of using Git and GitHub. And just to summarize this, I'm just going to the first time you do any of this, you do a git clone. Every time you sit down for a session, you do a git pull. And so the very first time is just the clone. And this is really cd into the directory, and then do a git pull. Then every time you add a new file, do a git add of the file. And again, every time you have to commit and push. And then as you work, whenever you edit, basically it's edit and test your file, then you do a git commit, and then you do the push. And that's what you keep doing over and over and over again. And I'm just going to and that will be now on GitHub. So that's pretty much it. So I'm going to push this up. And so this is a little bit of a workflow through that first lab. So finish off that first lab, and yeah, and we don't have class on Monday because of the Labor Day. So Labor Day, Memorial Day, whatever, whatever, the Monday holiday. So we're going to so we'll actually go to the next steps on Thursday. Yeah, and so that's it. So let me stop the recording.